Joining me now is GB News host Darren Grimes. Darren, the First Minister of Scotland, Humza Yousaf, well, he resigned this week after just over a year in office. What can be said about his reign? It was short, it certainly wasn't sweet. What brought him undone in the end?
Oh, well, Rita, I'm like the cat that got the cream today, I'll tell you that much, because has been useless. He was the trans self-ID supremo. I've been on this show before discussing that. And actually, Rita, his pronouns are now ex, former, and past, which is absolutely glorious. And I'm delighted because for a simple reason, right? I'm grateful to him for he is, as you mentioned, the second shortest serving Scottish First Minister in history. And he actually revealed to the world that in progressive politics, racism is real, right? All too real. But it's anti-white racism. Because his infamous anti-white speech, in which he stood up in the Scottish Parliament and waxed lyrical about how there are too many white people in posts of power in a country that is overwhelmingly white, as if that's a surprise to all of us. That's what he'll be remembered as. He'll be triggered to actually learn, Risa, that the colour of his severance slip is indeed white. He is a useless hate crime aficionado. He has wasted countless oodles of police time and resources on trans self-ID hate crimes and all these other things. He allowed a double rapist to access a female-only prison. He built a ferry, Rita, where it went absolutely nowhere and had painted on windows on the taxpayer, I kid you not. And he had an obsession, fundamentally, he had an obsession not with Glasgow, but with Gaza. This is a man that stood up in Pakistan and he announced he is a son of Pakistan. Then when he's in Scotland, he announces he's a son of Scotland, wouldn't be anywhere else. He is an identity politics obsessed clown.
And he's been the subject of many hate crime complaints himself, and partly for that speech, that infamous speech he gave, pointing out all the white people in different positions. Now, let's talk about human rights activist Ayaan Hirsi Ali, a brave woman, a brilliant woman. I've had her on this program. She's written a really powerful piece for the Daily Mail on terrorism, the growing Islamist threat in Europe. Salman Rushdie, she wrote, "The valour of Churchill and Rushdie has been absent all too often in the West. Denial and delusion have been our watchwords. Capitulation has been dressed up as social inclusion. The pathetic impulse to appease has allowed Muslim extremism to flourish in our midst." It's a timely piece, Darren, and it's a message we have heard previously, and every time we hear it, we also hear the cries of Islamophobia.
Absolutely. Hirsi Ali is absolutely right. Brilliant, brilliant woman, brilliant piece. We've been utterly supine, frankly, and we've been more accommodating to the threat that lives among us than that comedian from Netflix's Baby Reindeer program, right? To that stalker. Because we've got to remember, Rita, that in Britain especially, 3 years on, we have a teacher that's still in hiding and may never
Yes.
return because he showed a cartoon of Muhammad in a religious education class. Now, another big concern this year, we have a general election in Britain at some point this year, and we've brought about the introduction of voter identification, a really simple, important thing, no different to picking up a parcel from the post office, for example. And the big concern with voter ID, Rita, isn't actually the disenfranchisement of voters or anything like that. It's about women wearing face coverings, being forced to unveil themselves and requiring a female to actually verify them, as if that's a reason, Rita, to forego protection of the ballot box. that's just one example of a constant slew of them. We had an example most recently where a prayer ban in schools was judged to be potentially unlawful, and we spent £500,000 in British taxpayer money actually bringing that case to court. Thankfully, it lost. But I'm sick of the appeasement, because as our freedoms are increasingly diminished, we live in fear of attending Ariana Grande concerts for fear of our children being blown up. We have young girls live in fear of being raped and accused of racism if they speak up. And we see our capital city most recently celebrate Ramadan, but not Easter. The attack, and I think Hirsi Ali is absolutely right here to mention the attack on Salman Rushdie for speaking up 3 decades ago in his book, The Satanic Verses, being a reminder of where inaction actually gets a nation. Because how much has actually changed, Rita, in those 3 decades? We've allowed rampant anti-Semitism to grow and fester through Islamism. We've abandoned our principles, those that are supposed to define us, those that our ancestors fought and died for. And what will Britain look like in 3 decades' time? I really hope, with all of my heart, actually, that it isn't a shrug of the shoulders as we speak about, freedoms that we once had or enjoyed, but we were too utterly pathetic to defend, because that's the trajectory we're on. In Germany, over recent days, we've had calls to create an Islamic caliphate called for on the streets. And there's a shrug of the liberal shoulders saying, oh, well, we're a liberal, tolerant society. We've got to let this happen. No, we do not have to let this happen. We have to be robust in standing up and saying, this ain't how we do things in the West.
Now let's talk a little Prince Harry. We've neglected him, Darren. We used to talk about him all the time, but you and I have not talked Harry. He is going to be coming home to the UK next week. It's 10 years of the Invictus Games, so he will be attending. Do we know if Meghan's coming, if the kids are coming? Of course, he lost that police protection in the UK, and he's said he doesn't feel safe bringing his wife and family to the UK. But, well, they were in Nigeria a few weeks ago. They felt safe there. Surely they will be with him for this trip.
No, apparently People magazine report that Miss Markle will not return to Britain, and Britain sighs a massive sigh of relief. Yes, I know, how terrible, Rita. How will we ever sleep at night? She's only interested in Nigeria, now you mention it, because guess what? She found a way to make the African nation all about her, because she found out that she had some historic connection through her ancestors of being of Nigerian descent. Now, at last year's Invictus Games tournament, Harry and Meghan were given this commemorative plaque thing from Nigeria's chief of defense, right? And it read, she was given a nickname, and this nickname said something to the effect of, it called her a legendary warrior princess and said she was blessed and a royal wife. Oh. Well, I hate to break it to Nigeria, but she ain't a royal wife. She gave all that up because she thought it was too difficult. Such a warrior princess she is, Rita. I mean, how utterly pathetic. Well, it's absurd, because this is a D-list actress that decided she's too good, right, for charity galas and public duties, now saying that she has some link to the Nigeria, in the same way that the president of the United States, Joe Biden, says he has a link to Ireland. Well, if you go through my history, I would have a link to Ireland, as many people do, because the Irish ended up here, there and everywhere. But I don't bleat on about it every 2 seconds. It's this obsession with identity politics.
Darren, maybe you should be going across to Ireland and getting declared some sort of a, I don't know, what was it, a warrior prince you could be in Ireland?
Prince, yes, I could.